welcome back to Epilepsy Moms. We are so glad you're here to join us today. Today, Liz is going to be asking her questions for me about my story. My name is Summer, and my son has generalized epilepsy with tonic-clonic seizures and absent seizures.
And my name is Liz, and my daughter has focal epilepsy with focal seizures in her temporal lobe. So to get into the questions, I have about 11 questions that, if you haven't gone and listened to her story, definitely go back to the first part and listen to the whole thing. That way, if you have any of your own questions, feel free to email and message us the questions that you have for Summer on her journey through this with her son. So question number 1, do you think it would have been easier learning of his diagnosis early on, like early on in his life, or even early on, like if you had known before you went on vacation?
Right. Yeah, I think it would have been nice to have known. Like if I had gone to the doctor in April and they had said, oh, well, that sounds like he's sleeping a lot, like maybe too much. Maybe we should look into something. Or if they had asked me questions like, is he doing anything else that's unusual? That would have been nice. I would have appreciated that. I don't know if it would have led to them figuring it out. If I had known more, then I think he definitely would have been diagnosed earlier. But in the end, if he had been diagnosed at that point, we wouldn't have known that he was going to have tonic-clonic seizures as well. Yeah. So, I mean, in the end, it's probably good because we know he has both types.
Yeah. Have you heard any of his teachers complain before he was diagnosed of him spacing out at all?
No. And that was something I wondered about too. He was homeschooling at the time, but he still had a teacher he was meeting with every 2 weeks, and he had a tutor he met with once a week. And neither of them ever said anything. And I'm sure that those happened during the tutoring sessions, especially because they're happening pretty frequently. But like I said, it's also something that you can easily miss. An absent seizure it's easy to just think, oh, they're just, their mind is just wandering. And especially my son was so good at covering for himself. He never once said anything like, oh, I'm missing things, or, I feel like I didn't get what you said because I was spacing out, or, this is excessive spacing out. I think there's something wrong. It was always, oh, I'm fine. I was just thinking. And I don't think he really was thinking about things. I don't think he remembers those times at all. From from questions I've asked him now, he doesn't remember anything. It's just a blank time.
And like, did you ever go back to the teachers and be like, this is, what we have been noticing, this is what happened? Have you asked them, like, did they notice anything when he was in school?
No, I didn't, because it was summertime. If we had still been in the school year, I totally would have done that. But we were already at the end of school. He was already out. And then I did just recently talk to the tutor that he had been with, and I was telling her everything, and she never said she saw anything. So I
probably just wasn't aware.
Yeah.
Number 3, has it made you more aware of other people or children when you're out in public?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I think it's made me more aware that there are diagnoses out there that we don't know about. And it was really interesting. We were at a restaurant, and my daughter actually choked on something and ended up throwing up in the restaurant. And the waitress came over and told me, oh, don't worry, this is nothing. 2 weeks ago, a little boy came in and choked on a carrot, and then he was prone to seizures, and he ended up having a tonic-clonic seizure right now. And so it has made me aware of that way of, like, just having more empathy towards people and more understanding of, wow, like, things happen, and just, it's a good reminder to have kindness for everyone that you meet, because you don't know anyone's story.
Yeah, it's very true. Number 4, what was your initial reaction with his first clonic tonic?
Probably just fear. And like I said in the YouTube video we did, it's fight or flight takes over, and I'm pretty good under pressure. And so I feel like I handled that moment well, but also at the same time, it's just inside you're fearful. Like my actions on the outside did not match my inward thoughts at all. Because inside I was like crumbling, but on the outside it was like, okay, we have to call 911. It was kind of shocked too. Like, I'm super shocked. I don't know what to do but call 911. And I feel like once we moved him away from the water, I was a little bit more in control and was like, okay, I'm going to just sit and comfort him and do what I need to do. And there were a few other things that are a little bit private that I didn't talk about that were really just emphasize that like feeling of fear and losing your child, and yet you work through it and you do what you have to do in that moment to help your child.
Yeah. Number 5, do you think that if it happened again, you'd be a little bit more prepared for another clonic tonic?
I think it's really hard to prepare for that. And I have so much empathy for parents who don't have their child's tonics under control, because they're intense, and really any seizure is like super scary and super intense, and you worry about your kid no matter what kind it is. I don't know. I mean, I know I would be more prepared in that I've seen it before and I know what to do now. But at the same time, seeing your child in that anytime, you're always going to feel traumatized and upset about it.
Number 6, how was his attitude, and how was he the next day after his day at the beach?
It's so interesting. So he had no idea. He has zero memory. The only thing he remembers is waking up in the ambulance and the paramedic putting in the IV because he was going to the hospital. That's like his only memory. And even at that point, he was really tired. I think he was like in and out of sleepiness, kind of needing a lot of naps.
Yeah.
When we left the hospital, he just would lay down. He was really exhausted. Although he did tell me, he said, I was on the beach and I fell asleep, because that's what he thinks happened. He said, I fell asleep and everyone was worried, but I had the best sleep of my life. And I felt he says he felt so rested when he woke up. It was like his body got the reset that it needed. And maybe that's true. He had all those absent seizures. He was so exhausted. And then his body did this reset and he felt better, but he still acted very tired.
Yeah. Yeah. Number 7, has the new medication given him any odd side effects, like the Keppra and the other medication? I can't remember what the name was, but the other medication did.
So the Keppra and the ethosuximide are both depressants. And I would say I think that's the only side effect we saw, was just, also anxiety, depressing mood and anxiousness, both increased. He was worried a lot, always worried, like, I got to wash my hands. Someone sneezed. Like, why did they just sneeze? Like, what do I need to do to clean this up? Like, he would be worried about these little things that didn't matter so much. And then when he got off of those and he's just on the Depakote now, I'm not seeing any side effects with that, except maybe some stomach aches once in a while. So he always tries to eat it or take it with food.
Mm-hmm.
But even that doesn't super help. He still complains his stomach aches a little bit, but his blood work, we just got done and came back all clear. So that's
good
news.
Did you see a lot of seizures during those 5 weeks that he was transitioning from medications?
I think we saw less. They were shortening for sure. When he was on all 3, I think he was still having the absent seizures, but they were shorter. So where they had been up to 10 seconds long, now they were like 3 or 4 seconds, but he was still having them.
Okay. Number 8, while he was doing the blow EEG, you had said while he was blowing that it was really hard for him, like afterwards he felt like he was very frustrated afterwards. Now, is it because of how he was feeling inside, or does he remember not being able to stop the blowing while he was in his seizure?
Yeah, I think some of it, because he would come out, he would have shorter seizures and wake up and still be blowing. And then he'd have the really long one where he didn't remember blowing that full time. But I think he could just feel that he had worked really hard. Like his chest had done a workout.
Right.
That was painful. And it was a little bit awkward. I mean, he's a teenager and someone's handing you a pinwheel and saying blow on this, and he was a little bit like, what, this is weird. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and teenagers get a little self-conscious, and so he was like, why am I doing this? This is so strange. And then he had a seizure, and it didn't matter anymore. He wasn't self-conscious anymore because he's already starting to have seizures pretty quickly into it.
Right. Was he on medication when he had already started the Keppra, right?
He was already on the Keppra.
Yeah. Number 9, since the new medication, how has he been? Like, how has everything been? It's obviously you've been a little bit more controlled, but has it completely made them stop since you've started the Depakote?
Yeah, the last 2 weeks, and I think since we've transitioned, I think it's been about 8 weeks now. So I would say the last 2 weeks after we got off Keppra, after we got off the ethosuximide, his mood's improved. He hasn't had any seizures that we've noticed. He has said at night he's had this feeling of like falling and jerking. So I'm wondering if maybe he could still be having a few at night, but he is definitely much more awake and alert when he gets up in the morning and feeling just generally a lot better.
Now, my dad had actually told me when he had seizures that he would get this like this aura, almost like he could feel like this aura coming on, or he would get like a taste in his mouth. Has he noticed anything like that for himself yet?
No, we've asked him, but he's never said he feels anything like that.
Like before it starts. Wouldn't that be nice?
Right, to know it's going to happen. I mean, if you're having tonic-clonic, especially, it's important to know, because if you fall down, like if you have that aura, you can be like, oh, I better sit down, because you definitely don't want to be falling. Well, any seizure, it's any kind of warning sign is a good thing.
So, Levin, how has his schooling been since he's been having to do this homeschooling with all of his medications and all the seizures, and how has it affected his schooling?
It's been hard because his memory is definitely not what it used to be. And he's a very smart kid, and memorizing things has always been easy for him. And so it's a little bit frustrating now because he can't just remember stuff. And he has to try a little bit harder, where before he was used to, oh, I could read this book and then tell you everything about it. And now, well, I have to really read it a little bit slower, think it through a little bit more, and then I can tell you about it. So in that way, it's been a little bit hard, but yeah, other than that, I think it's been okay.
Good. Well, those are the only questions that I have. If you have any more questions for Summer, you can either put them in the comment box below, or you can email us at, I think it's the epilepsymoms@gmail.com. And definitely get your questions out to Summer or I. If you go back to listen to my video, which is a few videos back, definitely shoot us a message and let us know how we did, or if you have any other questions or comments, and we'd love to answer them for you. If we get a lot of comments, I would love to do either comments or questions. I'd love to do just a video of just your guys' questions and comments. That would be super great for Summer and I to do for you and get those all answered. So next week, we're going to be bringing on a guest. She's very near and dear to my heart, very special to me. One of my really closest friends, one of my best friends in this whole epilepsy journey. Her name is Brittany, and her little daughter is about the same age as my daughter. And they have quite the story. So you'll want to stay tuned for Brittany's story.
It's very different from our story. So
yeah,
and it's interesting, I feel like, for parents of epileptic kids to hear the different stories that there are out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of differences and different types of epilepsy and different reasons our kids have epilepsy. So definitely stay tuned for Brittany's talk with us.
So your story's not over.
Your story's just begun.